What if we could learn from outstanding leaders in business, sports, and education from some of the best voices in corporate America? Lighting the Path is a series of interviews with industry leaders whose stories highlight strategies that build purpose-driven cultures, engage and retain top talent, develop drivers that create high-performance teams, and connect people to the vision of your company. Join us to hear from game-changing, talented leaders whose paths make a difference at work and at home.
Today's guest has been on a different journey than most go through. That took him from the halls of MIT to building an organization called Fixer.com. And Mike Evans is not just an entrepreneur, but has this cool venture in his life that he's going on, trying to empower entrepreneurs to realize their dreams and goals by expansion, by moving from one threshold to another. So, Mike, I was looking forward to talking to you because I talked to a lot of people who have dreams of either being an entrepreneur or they're fledgling entrepreneurs, and they're trying to figure out, how do you scale? And I've got to ask you, we were talking before we got on about life like going from MIT to driving this company that you've built that became the impetus for this book that you have, which is called Hangry, a startup journey.
Yeah.
So welcome.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Yeah. So Hangry is actually the story of founding GrubHub in my apartment and running it all the way through the IPO. And then after that, I punted it all and rode my bike across the United States, literally a bicycle from Virginia to Oregon. And then more recently, as you mentioned, I've started this company called Fixer, which is similar in some ways to GrubHub, but in the sense that we all expect to be able to use our phone as a remote control for our lives, but instead of ordering food, it's about scheduling a handy person to come and fix something in your home.
Yeah. So do me a favor, go up. Where did the impetus for GrubHub come from? Because that's got a huge brand. I mean, it's you scaled well there. How did that go from thought to action?
Yeah, slowly is how it went from thought to action. It was an overnight success, but it took 13 years to get there. And so the initial version of the website was really just, I wanted a pizza. It was hard to find the restaurants that delivers me, so it was originally a delivery guide around the idea of discovery, just finding the restaurants that deliver to you. And then it eventually developed into an online ordering platform and advertising platform for restaurants over the first couple of years. And that was really just a matter of going from I built something for myself to I was building it for other people to then I had customers, the restaurants themselves. And it was just an evolution from writing software to doing sales to running a business over the course of the first couple of years, from 2002 to 2005, 2006 maybe, and then from there it really was about scaling it up to a national brand.
Yeah. So when you look at, I refer to them as thresholds as you go through different stages of growth and development. Was there any kind of a threshold that you hit with GrubHub that was like, if I don't punch through this, not only do we not move forward, but we fail, we move backward? Was there ever a kind of a wall or something that you ran into there that was a huge learning opportunity for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest wall that anyone faces is the first one, going from being a hobby to a business. So when you make no money, you've got a hobby. When you make no revenue, and then when you make the first dollar, you now have a business. And that transition is 51% of the journey. Everything else after that is just optimization. And so it's a big deal to go from a product that no one has paid you for, that people would say they might pay you for, or they would, to actually getting dollars. And then there's another threshold, I think, that is when you get a customer to pay you a second time for the same product, a repeat purchase from a returning customer, because it means that not only did you sell them on the idea in the first place, but the product itself was good enough for them to come back and purchase again. And so I think those are probably the two biggest ones that most people sort of struggle with. There's probably 75% of building a business is just getting through those two milestones. It's shockingly easy to get through the first one. You just have to start and do it. But that going from inaction to action is a big barrier.
Yeah, huge, because it's, I call it the biggest gap in the world, which is this big. Well, this big represents this. It's the space between our ears. It's the thought process of how do we punch through things. I'm kind of curious about something. Is that you have a book that you've been that's rolling out right now. It's
Yep.
specifically geared toward the entrepreneurial mind. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so Hangry is, the idea behind it is really for anyone who sort of is in the midst of their career. It certainly has applicable messages to entrepreneurs, but really like anybody who's sort of in this place where they're wondering if their skills and their activity and their actions are actually lined up with where they want to be going. And so one of the main messages behind the book is success is personally defined. And so a lot of people will spoon feed you a version of success that they think you should have. And so that's one thing. But if you actually define that for yourself and it's unique and it's personal to you, then it goes a lot longer. It's a lot easier to hit those kind of goals. And so I talk about the actual journey of going from nothing to having this huge business. But I think the lessons are applicable to anyone, especially anyone who doesn't just sort of accept the narrative that like go to work 40 hours, kind of be miserable during that time, and then like finish your week. Like that's no way to live. And so the book talks a lot about a path out of that sort of drudgery and into something more interesting.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious about something. What is you went to what is considered to be arguably one of the top educational brainiac schools in the country. What does this book teach us that you didn't learn at MIT?
So sales is it's not about shoveling information about a product at somebody. It's about developing a relationship with another human being and then asking them to take a chance on you. And that was shocking to me. I thought if I just built a better mousetrap, people would buy it. But that's actually false. It almost has nothing to do. Those initial sales have almost nothing to do with the quality of the product and everything to do with the quality of the relationships you build with your potential customers. Now, whether or not they repeat purchase, whether or not they come back and stay customers, that has a lot to do with the product itself. But that was surprising to me. I didn't realize that it would be such a human-oriented sort of endeavor to go do sales. I mean, it makes sense. It's obvious now that I say it out loud, but at the time, it was a hard lesson to learn.
Yeah, so it's not the product, it's the trust that people have in the product. And that's the space you play in, is establishing that baseline of trust where I'm willing to take a step out and take a shot at this. You're in a transactional oriented business. How do you build a relationship? How did y'all learn to focus on relationship when you're doing transactional type of work? Yeah,
the first sale that I ever made, the reason, I had 30 attempts that failed. And the first one that succeeded was when I said, hey, I'm an entrepreneur, you're an entrepreneur, take a chance on me. And so the initial sale is about trust, because you're asking somebody to give you either cash or their time or their energy or their attention in return for something. And you're asking them to believe on faith that you're going to deliver on your value, on your product, on making their life and their business better. And so there is an element of trust in that for sure. And then that develops, if you do that enough times, you do that one time or 100 times or 50,000 times, you end up developing products that are along this line, that like, okay, well, the business that I'm creating, it better make it more likely that a restaurant will be in business as a result of being one of our customers. And so that, like, the trust becomes a guiding principle in terms of the way that you develop the products and for your business in the long term, because you want customers to be able to believe that your value proposition is real, it's true.
Yeah, so I love talking about mistakes, and I think we learn more for those than success stories. When you think about what you just talked about, have you observed where there's not necessarily common, but maybe an occasional mistake is made in establishing that trust relationship with that new prospect or that new individual that you've seen, where the relationship breaks down because the step's not taken?
Yeah, I think there's 3 steps to a sales conversation or relationship, if you will. The first is listening. Listening to what your potential customer, what their needs are. And then the second piece is sharing how whatever it is that you've built, whatever product that you have, can help them. And then the third piece is asking for the money. And so it's really easy to skip the first step. It's easy to just jump right into sales mode where I've got a product and you should buy it, right? Like we're bombarded by advertisements and spam emails that take this very approach. They have no interest in finding out what our needs are. They're simply broadcasting that they're a solution. And it's a terrible way to go about sales. It's a terrible way to start those relationships, because not only are you not being relationship oriented, if you don't start with listening, then you're missing a huge piece of the puzzle, which is, what do my customers need? And if you don't ask that question, you can't know the answer. And if you don't know the answer, what products are you, like, what are you going to build? What value are you going to create? I don't know how to do it without talking to potential customers and finding out what they need.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's that I call that pitch mindset. We go into pitch mode as opposed to probe. And in sales, it's the probing that we do that really opens the door for us to be able to make somebody feel like, hey, they get me, they understand me. And the dialogue gets focused now on the prospect of the client. I'm kind of curious about something, especially on the subject of mistakes. When you look back on scaling your business, is there a lesson learned where you kind of either went down a wrong path or a mistake that you made that was a big aha for you?
Yeah, I mean, so at Fixer's, I moved on from GrubHub after the book, and I talk about this towards the end of the book, that I was thinking about starting a company that was really more impact oriented in terms of, not only does it create value for our customers, our homeowners, but we are of value to the communities we serve, because we're training tradespeople from scratch. And so
tell who people are watching, listening, tell them what Fixer is. I think it's
yeah.
fascinating, this journey that you're building now.
Yeah, so Fixer is an on-demand handy person service where you can go online, schedule a person to come show up, and we show up on time, and we're highly skilled, clean up after ourselves. The billing's all automatic. Exactly what you'd expect out of a modern day consumer service, right? And we train the people from scratch. We train the fixers. We first hired experienced people, we built curriculum, and then we train people from scratch. And so in some ways, we're a training program disguised as a tech startup. And so that's the nature of the company. In terms of mistakes, one that I made that I had no idea I was making a mistake with that at the time, and I don't know that I could have predicted this was a mistake, is we were in a very high growth mode in like December 2019, January of 2020. And so we doubled our staff in January and February of 2020. You may remember that in March 2020, COVID-19 shut the country down, just as we had doubled our staff to go and help people in their homes, to go into people's homes to go fix things. And so, in April of 2020, our revenue dropped by 85%, and we had to scramble. We had to scramble to keep people employed and to keep them working. And so we ended up doing some general contracting jobs, and where we could send people solo into vacant buildings to do work. But even that was a real challenge. And so we spent about a year just trying to keep the lights on, and keep the heartbeat going. So that was a mistake, but it's not one that I could have possibly known. And then after the fact, a lot of the things that we tried during the pandemic to just keep the lights on, we just ended up having to throw those things out because they were not useful once we got back to a more normal environment. And so it was a mistake I couldn't have known going into the pandemic, but then it was a mistake of maybe overreacting during the pandemic, because who didn't? But it was really hard to just know how much we stay the course versus respond to this thing, whether it was by May we were like, is this gonna be over in another month, or is this gonna be it couldn't possibly go another year, and then it ended up being 2 more years. And so it was just hard to know how to react to sort of this big black swan event.
Thanks for joining us today on Lighting the Path, Strategies for Tomorrow's Leaders. If anything in this podcast speaks to you, if I've challenged you, or if you want to spend time digging into this subject a little deeper, or if you disagree with me, reach out. My contact information is on our website, lightingthepath.net, or email me at mike@mikelejeune.com. Also, look for me on LinkedIn. I'd love to connect our networks. Keep lighting the path for those who choose to follow you. It's more than a responsibility. It's an honor.